right, everyone. I'm Albano here along with Zain. We're on the MMA Network from the MMA Outsiders. And so, the story we talked about earlier this week on episode 46 of the MMA Outsiders, it is now confirmed. Tyson Fury, Francis Ngannou. It is official. October 28th, Saudi Arabia. What else can I say? So, Francis Ngannou, he fumbled the bag, all right. He really fumbled the bag.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything you can say that will make you think that any longer because Francis Ngannou is about to get the biggest payday that he has ever had in his entire combat sports career, if you will. Given that this is now a boxing match, so yeah, the fight that Dana White feared would happen is now official, and I'm excited to talk about this with you because this is a fight that we've been hinting at for months. But before we get into all of that, again, and again, my name is Zain Bando, of course. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to share this live stream across all social media. Follow us at MMA Outsiders ETB, the Empty the Bench Podcast Network, at ETB Network, of course. You can find my work over at bjpen.com. I am also a Bellator rankings panelist over there as well. And then to my left is my fellow co-host, Tom Albano. You can find his work over at Fansided MMA. And of course, you can go look for all of his stuff on the PFL website as the playoffs are going to be taking shape within the next month or so. But yeah, we just wanted to come on this morning and really dissect this spectacle that is Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou. We've seen these kinds of boxing matches before, a la Jake Paul, Anderson Silva, Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley, Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. But this fight is a little bit of a different feel to it, and I don't want to say a bigger feel to it, but definitely one where you kind of don't know what's going to happen, considering how scary both individuals are. But just to talk about this from like a business perspective, if you would have told me a year ago that Saudi Arabia would be getting in on this fight, I don't know if I would have believed it. But they weren't kidding when they said a couple months ago at a press conference that Matchroom had, where they were kind of announcing some stuff they were going to do with Matchroom Boxing. They said their goal was to bring the biggest and baddest fights to that region and to that country. I don't think you can get any more of that description than this fight. I mean, you talk about these two; they're the two most popular heavyweights in the world, not named John Jones. Tyson Fury is the best boxer on the planet. Many people believe Francis Ngannou is still the baddest man on the planet. I think what's interesting about this fight, Tom, and something that I don't think a lot of people are fully paying attention to is this buildup, if done the right way, could be very special. I more so think the fight is a spectacle itself, but I think more so what we need to look at here is just the build up for this fight is going to be outstanding, and with no major MMA taking place that weekend, from what I recall, this is going to be the center of the sports world outside of college football and maybe the World Series that same week.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a really packed weekend in sports. And that does give me a little concern about the date of October 28th. However, I feel like for a fight, for somebody the caliber of Tyson Fury, for somebody the caliber of Francis Ngannou, you can't just look at the United States numbers. You have to look at, once all this is said and done, you're going to have to look at the global market. You're going to have to look and see everything from how not just the buys it does in the United States, but the buys it does with the UK and the rest of the world. Obviously, I know you said that this was some from Matchroom, but I believe Tyson Fury, with him being a top-ranked promoter in Queensberry Promotions talent, I think this is actually going to. Now they haven't made an official announcement about broadcasting or anything. All we know is a fight. I should clarify, by the way, there are certain details we are still a little up in the air about with this fight. So we are up in the air about. Well, here's what we're not up in the air about. It's going to be a boxing match. It is going to be a professional boxing match. It's going to be under boxing rules. 3 judges at ringside. The three judges. The 10-point must system. What remains unclear is the number of rounds. First of all, because some people are saying the common number that's being thrown around is it's going to be a 10 round fight. Um, that's the common number that's being thrown around is a 10 round fight, and obviously his WBC heavyweight title will not be on the line. We'll get into that in just a little bit, but they're basically it seems that the whether the fight will count towards their professional boxing records is actually unclear according to ESPN. But I don't think they're going to be holding back. If you saw the statements that were made towards like Ariel Helwani and such, that Ariel Helwani reported on, they are going to throw heavy leather is basically what they are implying. Fury's heavyweight title will not be on the line. The number of rounds, so the common one I've been hearing is 10, although there are some people that are saying that it could be a 12-round fight. Um, but yeah, there are some things that we don't know about, but the fight is on. I suspect it'll be ESPN Plus pay-per-view, so I don't even know if we're going to get the numbers because ESPN Plus pay-per-views just don't even release the pay-per-view numbers these days, if you could tell from their UFC broadcasts. Um, but really,
Well,
I
and also you'll probably, considering it's boxing, because of that weird conundrum, you'll probably still get some linear action too, and that I'm sure that the providers would love to pick that up.
I'm sure of that too,
Mm-hmm.
especially in places where it won't be broadcasted on ESPN Plus. Uh, but regardless, I think regardless of the pay-per-view buys, I think this is at least a win for the fighters involved because let's be real, all the takes that we have heard, oh, Francis Ngannou fumbled the bag when he left the UFC. Francis Ngannou could have been the biggest star in the UFC. Well, guess what? He won. There's no at this point, there's no more that needs to be said. He won. He is going to. You just said it yourself, Sam. He's going to get the biggest payday he could possibly get. We thought he was going to go to do the 2 fight thing with Deontay Wilder, one in the boxing ring later this year, once with the in the PFL on his debut next year. But no, he gets the WBC heavyweight champion. He
Yeah,
gets one of the biggest stars in this sport.
this is a bigger win for him because now I think this is great marketing too because if he somehow wins the fight or even looks remotely impressive in the fight, like if he holds his own in it, I think it'll get the PFL crowd a lot more excited to see what he actually does the following year. Because now if this fight is going to be the spectacle that we think it is, every single Francis Ngannou fight is going to have some sort of stipulation. And you want to talk about starting off with a bang. This is as hard. This is as, I guess you could say, hard to start off with as you could possibly get. And it proves that the WBC is realizing what Francis Ngannou's worth is, not just to the sport of boxing, but to combat sports. Also, something I wanted to mention too, didn't want to confuse you with the matchroom thing. I was more so just saying that it seems like Saudi Arabia is getting a little bit more involved, and it happened to be that matchroom was hosting in that press
Okay.
conference. That was more. That was more of my point.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
Matchroom is the innovators of bringing boxing to Saudi Arabia in the modern era, I would say, because the first one I can
Right.
think of was 4 years ago when they did the Joshua Ruiz rematch in Saudi Arabia in December of 19.
That's
Uh,
right. They did. That's
but
correct.
you are starting to see them, taking, a lot of the major fights that have happened over the last 3.5 to 4 years. And I don't think that's going to be something that changes. I think Saudi Arabia is going to play a role in the sport, whether you like it or not, whether you consider blood money or not, whether you approve of their circumstances, how they are as a country or not, or the reform movements, if you believe it or not, they are going to be a player in combat sports now. I mean, come on. They're just going to be a player in sports, period. They own a
Yeah.
Premier League team. They back the LIV, which just merged with the PGA. Like
Right.
they are now a
And,
player in sports, period.
and there's now speculation going around that they're pumping money into major Power Five college football programs. Or point in saying all of this is they are everywhere and they will continue to be everywhere whether you like it or not.
So I mean, we'll talk about winners and losers in just a second, but this is a win for Francis Ngannou. It's definitely a win for Saudi Arabia. I think this could be a win for the PFL, but this could, and whether you think it's a winner for not for boxing is up for debate. Let's talk about the circumstance though, because I brought it up before about the circumstances of the fight, the rules of the fight, and such. Let's bring up for a second that WBC ruling. So Mauricio Suleiman made the president of the Boxing Council, the WBC, the major sanctioning body of boxing, made a couple of tweets out yesterday that basically clarified Tyson Fury will go into this fight as the WBC heavyweight champion, and he will not be stripped of the WBC heavyweight championship. And the reasoning is that there is no mandatory challenger as of this point.
And to
And I,
me, that's just,
sorry,
and when
you,
I first, oh, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
All right, sorry. I guess we have a little lag on our end for whatever reason. But I will throw up the other part of it, so just because it was the same tweet. But apparently, according to Suleiman, Fury tried to make fights with Alexander Usyk, which would have been an undisputed heavyweight title fight. Did try to make a fight with Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz Jr., but basically was unable to come to terms with all three of them. And maybe it's just me, Zan, but it feels like Suleiman with that, I don't know if he's trying to defend not stripping Fury of the championship or if he's trying to put the blame with this tweet to put the blame on the likes of Usyk and Joshua and therefore by stretch Matchroom Boxing and Al Heyman and PBC.
It's a good point. I think it goes to show that Suleiman has all the power in the world when it comes to this stuff. And to me, it's a little bit too far fetched to say there was no mandatory challenger when Andy Ruiz Jr. I don't know about you, but it seemed to me like over the last several months, Andy Ruiz Jr. was willing to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place. Well, I don't know where talks stalled. We'll never know where talks stalled. That those were obviously behind closed doors. But to me, it's disappointing considering the three other star heavyweights on the planet weren't able to come to a deal. Just considering that it looked like it was going to be a round robin. Every single guy was going to fight one another over the next year, and it looks like those plans are being halted because of this Ngannou situation. And maybe it's Solomon trying to control the narrative that he wants Fury to still be the champion when he fights any of those fighters you just mentioned to make a potential Usyk fight that much bigger. I don't know. I'm not accusing him of anything, but to me, it feels like a power imbalance, and it feels like Suleiman wants to call the shots when the guys that are in there doing the fighting, the guys that are in there making the millions of dollars, can't really have a full say. And to me, that's what this feels like.
I agree with you that it does show how Suleiman, and let's face it, the WBC, if you did a power ranking of the organizations of boxing, WBC is probably up there with number one just because of the stars, just because of Tyson Fury's status, just because of the respectable nature in terms of how fans have an outlook with the commissions. Obviously, the commissions and the sanctioning bodies don't exactly have the best of looks, but Zan, I mean, I think at some point, now I cannot fully blame this on Francis Ngannou when I put our classic banner up here because
No, this is
obviously Francis,
not at all. This is not his fault by any means. For the simple fact that he got what he was looking for, and he's gonna get the money, which is all he wanted when he got out of his UFC contract. But continue with your follow up point.
but my follow-up point is again, you look at all those names and you think about some of these big stars not fighting it on the letters. And we just talked about over these last two episodes how Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz Jr. couldn't come to terms on anything. How they're in a whole negotiation about doing a 70-30 or a 50-50 split. Anthony Joshua, it looked like he could fight Wilder at the end of the year in Saudi Arabia. And while that still can happen, all of a sudden, swerve. All of a sudden, next month, we're getting Anthony Joshua versus Dillian White 2 for, as you kind of put on our most recent episode, why the hell are we getting this fight? Like, I get they're both big names in the heavyweight scene in boxing, and Joshua, the former champion, but it feels kind of out of nowhere. And now Alexander Usyk, I mean, I guess part of Usyk's issue you can blame on the good old WBA, naming Daniel Dubois as the mandatory challenger. They have to fight. But again, we're trying to get an undisputed champion in this sport, an undisputed heavyweight champion for the first time since what, 2001, 2002?
Yeah, and since around the time Mike Tyson retired. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, around the time he really should have retired before he took those two fights in '04 and '05, in which he
yeah. Right.
just absolutely shouldn't have. But I think of in '99 when you have, the undisputed heavyweight championship fight. Actually, we had two undisputed heavyweight championship fights in that year because it was Evander Holyfield taking on, I think it was Lennox. Yeah, it was Lennox Lewis.
Lennox Lewis, yeah.
And
Although although I was not alive during any of those, but yeah. Yeah.
and actually, to also clarify, that was also the three age. The WBO didn't become the major sanctioning body to the level of WBA, WBC, and IBF until around that time, until '02, maybe a little afterwards, so early to mid 2000s. So we haven't had an undisputed champion at the heavyweight scene in the four belt era. The closest you can say was obviously when the Klitschko brothers dominated the sport and you had one holding the WBC and one holding all the others, kind of like what they with Fury and Usyk. But obviously the Klitschko brothers were not going to face off with one another. These guys can, and it seems like it just feels like an impossibility at this point that we're going
Well,
to get such a thing.
well, it feels impossible. Number one, and like we alluded to, what was it, Tom? Like 3 weeks ago, where we said, we could have already had these fights 3.5 years ago, and we never got.
Yeah, obviously, if Joshua Wilder gets made, I've commented 6, 7 years too late, which just seems to encapsulate the spirit of boxing at this point.
Mm-hmm. So my question for you is this: do you think a Fury Ngannou fight, which is now obviously official, do you think this ruins the possibility of us trying to determine who an undisputed champion is?
I'll just give you a take and throw it out there. Because we talk about, we can break down this fight and talk all we want to talk about Tyson Fury. We could talk about how boxing and MMA are two different kinds of preparations. But considering the power that Francis Ngannou displays, that we have seen in the octagon, and we're going to see in the PFL, let's face it, Francis has a chance to win. And what if Francis Ngannou knocks out Tyson Fury? Because we go back to this point here, Xander. Tyson Fury is not going to be stripped of the WBC title, and I'm not completely against it. But I was thinking yesterday, what happens if Fury loses, and especially if he gets knocked out?
Yeah, what happens about that? And also, he hasn't fought since December. So the more he doesn't defend the WBC championship, the more that title is in limbo.
At the same time, I don't know if you can just. And I love Francis Ngannou. I support Francis Ngannou. Maybe it's my PFL bias showing, where I showed off my PFL shirt as I was doing tough enough last night. But I mean, you can't just put the WBC heavyweight title on Francis Ngannou, can you?
No, I don't think you can. It's not fair. He hasn't fought in professional boxing.
So now, granted, if you really want my take, I think it's going to be a 12-round fight because you know what I think is going to happen? I
What
think
do
they're going to
you?
do with this fight a very similar thing with what they did with Mayweather and McGregor. Remember, with Mayweather and McGregor, they created the WBC money belt,
Yeah,
and they talked about that championship that was made out of like a crocodile or something like that.
yeah.
Basically, I feel like that's what they're going to do. They're going to make up some honorary championship to put on the line in the fight to make it a 12-round fight because
They're
that.
gonna they're gonna make it the baddest man on the planet belt.
They're gonna make the BMP title.
Yeah. But BMP doesn't have a nice ring to it, so they're literally going to spell it out on the belt they're gonna find a way to put it in quotes and everything.
The WBC BMP, and then you have Fury's face on one side, you have Ngannou's face on the other, and then you know what you can have in the center plate, San?
What?
You can have a very angry photo of Dana White.
Yeah, I think if they did that, I think they'd be getting sued for millions of dollars.
uh, but
I don't think Tom. I don't think you could pay Dana White enough money to even attend that fight. I think if he was asked, would you rather be handed $5 million for Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou in person? I think he would punch out whoever asked him the question.
I think if you asked Dana White this question during a game of Uno, and it was basically, hey, you have to take 25 cards or you have to go watch Francis Ngannou take on Tyson Fury, he would draw 25 cards.
I think he would too.
I think you know what's funny? It's like now that this fight got announced, everyone's waiting for another announcement. There was a meme tweet that I saw in which basically it said, okay, now that Fury versus Ngannou announced, he's probably gonna Dana White run like from the Ultimate Fighter out of my way over to USADA headquarters to get this Connor Chandler crap straightened out to announce it for December this week.
Well, did you see my editor from bjpen.com tried to troll the world by making fun of him and say, okay, this is obviously wasn't real, but he's like, okay, now Dana's going to try to make the biggest rematch ever, Khabib versus Conor McGregor #2.
I was more referring to the fact that the screen grab of the thumbnail, the big announcement tweet with Dana White's face on it was making its rounds. I'm like, yeah, this is basically what's gonna happen. He's gonna have a major announcement this week.
Yeah, and someone else tweeted they're like, wait about 6 hours and McGregor versus Chandler is gonna be official.
Yep, he's gonna run into the USADA headquarters. To say, okay, here you go. Let's get this done now.
Okay, so I have to ask you this question. We're talking about Saudi Arabia here. They obviously know how to put on big events. Are we going to be talking a 70,000 seat soccer stadium? What do you think? Where do you think realistically in an arena they're calling it it's Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I don't know if they have a venue announced for it yet.
I don't believe that they do. But are you referring to? Is it? I don't know if they ever play. Is it called Riyadh, Saudi Arabia? Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I know the city that you're talking about. I don't
Yeah,
know
that
if
that's
they.
according to the ESPN article. By the way, I have it on my second screen.
Uh, there are football stadiums in that area, but if I don't know. So I'm just gonna look right now at. I'm just gonna be very honest. I'm gonna be cheap and just look on the Wikipedia of like list of football stadiums. See in that city what football stadiums we have. So we have King Fahd International Stadium, which holds 68,752. We have
Okay,
KSU Stadium, which hosts 25,000. Prince Faisal Stadium, which hosts 22,188. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I would assume they probably will go to that 70,000 seat. Here's basically what I'm thinking with somebody with the power, not just of Francis Ngannou and this kind of spectacle of fight, but somebody like Tyson Fury, who is known worldwide, heavyweight champion, undefeated, lineal heavyweight champion, arguably the baddest man on the planet. You're probably either going to go to the 70,000 seat stadium or Zan. We have seen this. I mean, I think more of along the lines of like, you know, UFC 112, which was in Abu Dhabi, but I also think of like what they do sometimes for the Olympics is they'll put up those stadiums and then they'll either tear it down or it'll just be a wasteland at that point. So I think that's an option, but I think they might, as you said, Zan, you might be right. They might try to go for a 70,000 seat stadium.
yeah. I mean, could you see the fight taking place outdoors, or would it have to be enclosed?
Well, I'm going to go back to that page now. Is that an enclosed stadium? Is my question because I don't really know. I don't really know that stadium all too well. Let's see.
No, neither. No, oh, neither do I. I'm not a Saudi Arabia sports expert.
Neither am I. Let's see. What's the football stadiums? King Fahd International Stadium. It is. It does look like an open venue, open air stadium.
Oh wow. Okay.
I'm trying to see if it has a retractable roof, but I don't think so. Yeah, so I mean, it has one of those things. I don't know if you can see on my phone, but it has like the hole in the middle. It has
I
a roof, but
I can see it.
yeah, it has a roof, but there is an opening in the roof.
And obviously, tickets are not on sale yet, but I cannot imagine how insane those prices are going to be.
I can't imagine saying how. Well, let me ask. How much do you think the pay per view is going? Is this going to be McGregor Floyd Mayweather level where it's $99.99 to purchase the pay per view?
I could see it being more expensive.
You can actually see it going to the $100 range.
Yeah, I could see it being like $130. Yeah.
God, I hope not. I really hope not.
But I will say that's going to be a crazy 2 weeks for the region because you have UFC in Abu Dhabi the weekend before, and then you have this fight.
I know. I was just thinking that, like, for the Middle East, that's a major. That's a major W. You get
Yeah,
to have a UFC pay per view, which is probably going to be headlined by Islam Makhachev defending the lightweight title against somebody.
somebody.
At this point, it's just somebody. Hopefully, you know,
Hopefully it's
hope,
Volk.
yeah,
Hopefully it's
hopefully
Volk.
Volk are going, or or somebody else, or the BMF title winner. And then the next week you're going to have Fury and Ngannou. So
Uh,
major success for this region.
Assuming somehow the fight doesn't fall through for whatever reason, which is the big fear with these major boxing matches, as we know.
Yeah, but considering that everybody is announcing it, it's like I feel a little better with it.
Also, just so you know, in case you remember from a year ago, this is the same weekend that Jake Paul Anderson Silva took place. So
Yeah,
maybe this late October weekend is going to be this new tradition of a major boxing match is always going to happen Halloween weekend. Moving forward.
that'd be nice. That'd be nice. But obviously, I think Fury and Ngannou is going to be a lot better of a matchup than Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva was. Uh, do I think that they're going to be throwing lever at the rate that Ariel Helwani seemed to suggest with that statement that was released to him? I mean,
I doubt it. I mean,
I think maybe a little bit on Francis's end, but definitely not on Fury's end. I think the first two rounds are going to be very slow, and I think
okay,
round three is where the pace is going to slowly start to build up.
okay. And do you think, contrary to what people are saying on the interwebs, do you think that Francis Ngannou will actually throw one punch on Tyson Fury? Because the answer is absolutely yes, in my opinion. He's going to throw at least one punch.
Of course, he's going to throw a punch.
You'd be surprised. All the pro boxing people were like, oh, he might not even throw a punch against him. I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, guys, you've clearly never seen Francis Ngannou fight. He's going to throw at least one punch.
I'll say this to entertain those people. If
Okay.
Francis Ngannou does not throw a punch, he should not get his bag. But Francis Ngannou is not that kind of individual. The Francis Ngannou is not just gonna take. He's not Curtis Harper, all right. He's not gonna look across the ring, see Tyson Fury like Curtis Harper saw Fa, and then just walk out of the ring. The only reason I bring that comparison up is because it resurfaced on my feed today.
Because of course it resurfaces on everybody's fight feed like once a year.
I just remember watching that happen and just like scratching my head and like, what the hell did I just watch?
Are you willing to place a small friendly wager that Francis Ngannou will upset Tyson Fury?
I'm not that confident. I'm not. I'm not that confident to make a bet. Plus, I try to be a good example and not wager at this point.
Okay, good. As don't I either, which is relatively a good thing. But don't be surprised if the odds sway one way or another as the fight gets closer.
Oh, Tyson Fury is probably going to be a massive favorite in this fight. Francis, but you know what? Hey, it's more. You know what? It does open the door up for some Francis Ngannou bets. To
For
be.
sure. Do you anticipate Joe Testator and Tim Bradley and the crew being the ones to call the fight? Because I do.
I do because I suspect that, like I said, if this is going to be an ESPN Plus pay per view, if it's going to be a top ranked card, that's probably what it's going to be. Tessator and Bradley.
Yeah, the only thing that ESPN can't do is put this up against a major college football game at the same time. It needs to
I,
be.
I can't promise that, San. I can't promise that.
No, I know. Um, but I'm just saying if they air this during the day, it's going to be very difficult for people to watch it. I think
Yeah, but at the same time, I think you kind of have to when the fight's taking place in Saudi Arabia.
that's a good point.
Well, actually, Zan, the FBS schedule is out, so let's have a look. I'm gonna have to go very slow for some reason because it takes a while to load. Probably because there's so many games because it's college.
That's
Uh,
true.
so obvious. Oh, the I obviously can't sort by top 25 because obviously this is we're way too early in July for any rankings to come out. But I'm just having a look right now, Zan. Here are the games that have time slots in them so far. There's only 5.
Okay.
UMass Army's at noon.
Okay.
Here's the concerning one in my opinion. Georgia Florida's at 3:30.
Yeah, that is concerning, and that'll probably be the ABC game of the week too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Pittsburgh Notre Dame's at 3:30 as well.
Okay.
That's somewhat concerning. I'm just having a look right now to see. Auburn's going to play Mississippi State that day. I'm like trying to say, Kansas is playing Oklahoma. Oregon's playing Utah. Ohio State, Wisconsin. BYU, Texas. You know who I don't see on here, Zan? That's
Oh,
very interesting. For week 9, I don't see Alabama. Alabama
really?
might be on the bye that week. If Alabama's on a bye week 9, that's a major victory.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to see if I can see Clemson, but they're playing North Carolina State. I feel like that game might be 1-2 one-sided. Uh, I don't know, Sam. Name me a couple of the other big college football teams. You're not the biggest college football watcher. I need to be more of that, but
Oh, okay. I'm looking for myself really quick. Yeah, Ohio State, Wisconsin, that's one.
yeah, that's another concern.
Yeah, that's another concern. It looks to me like Illinois, my alma mater, is on a bye week. Northwestern is not, but neither of those two teams will really matter that much. I'm just trying to see
Well, I was
if
gonna say, well, let's see honestly if Northwestern even plays games this season.
no kidding about that. Let's see.
But
Yeah,
honestly, looking at this schedule, there are some concerns, but I feel like this is the least concerning weekend for them. It's almost like the one they have to do at this point.
yeah, I'm sure they looked at the schedule though ahead of time. I would have to think, considering that ESPN Plus will probably be the distributor for the fight.
Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
like I said, I think there are obviously some concerns, but obviously not every game has a time slot. Like I said, there's only been 5 games in that Saturday window that have confirmed times. And Georgia, Florida is really the one concern I have because I suspect Georgia's going to be the top team in football, college football again.
Yeah, Georgia's going to be number one, and there's a chance that Florida could be ranked also. Oh, so That's one to be concerned about for sure. Yeah,
But if you at least can get the fight off around the time, like if you have ring walks at 3:30, like most people will be able to tune into the game afterwards. So as long
for
as you
sure.
start, as if you start, I think usually the fight cards with the Saudi cards usually start around noon Eastern time. If you move it up an hour or two to 11 or 10 Eastern time for the prelims, and then do the main card around one or so, and then have the main event walk at 3:30, I think that's the least damaging, like I think you could. I think that could be possible.
For sure. Very good point.
Uh, but anyways, uh, yeah, I think the one. You know what? Let's go over now to the winners and losers here. So, winners of the fight being made, obviously Francis Ngannou. After all the talk of, oh, he should have never let the UFC. Francis fumbled the bag. Francis was afraid to fight John Jones. I mean, he's got his back. He won. Regardless of how this fight with Fury plays out, regardless of how his PFL run plays out, he's won. He got what he wanted. He's fighting one of the baddest dudes on the planet still, and he's fighting the WBC and lineal heavyweight champion. At the lineal title, the man who beat the man who beat the man who beat the man. Like right now, Tyson Fury is unbeaten in this sport. Uh, he and Usyk are the only two of that heavyweight crew defeated. Tyson Fury is the man at this point, and Francis Ngannou gets the opportunity to face him. So Francis wins. Who cares what Dana says? Who cares what John Jones says at this point? Francis has Francis has all the power in the world. Now, granted, it took a while to get there, and even people like me who are biggest supporters were starting to doubt. But I mean, we bring up the UFC. Think about the case of Stipe Miocic. Twice now, twice he sat on the sidelines waiting to get into a heavyweight title fight. First time with DC when they were trying to make the Brock Lesnar fight, and his patience paid off there, and he won the rematch and got the belt back. And now he waited after the whole Francis Ngannou thing, and now Zain, he's going to be challenging John Jones at Madison Square Garden to regain the title and become just the second three-time heavyweight champion in UFC history. Francis employed the same strategy, leaving the UFC, and he entertained like all those smaller promotions either couldn't afford him or said he was asking for too much, and the PFL gave him everything and more. You got to give it up to Francis Ngannou at this point. This is a massive win for him. He is the number one on the win list.
For sure, it's a massive win, but it's going to be a question of the return on investment in a couple of years. Did the PFL really get what they were looking for from him? And it starts with performing well in fights like this, where the whole world is going to be watching.
So you wouldn't say the PFL would? Can you call the PFL a win at this point? Then
No, I think it depends on how this fight goes first,
all
and
right. So
then
PFL, we're gonna. I was gonna say because I think maybe it's my bias showing, but I don't think you can even count this. Even though he's not going to debut for the promotion until 24, I don't think you can count this as a loss because here's my question.
I'm
And
not even. I'm not even saying it's a loss or a win. I'm also just saying it's a wait. It's a
I know,
wait and
I
it's
know,
a wait and
but it
see.
brings up. I know, Sam, but it also brings up another question: how much involvement is the PFL going to have on this? Is the PFL basically are they going to have a representative in the corner essentially of Ngannou, whether at media events in the fight itself, like how much? Because you have to suspect now that because they were playing trailers for Francis Ngannou during the PFL Europe 2 card last weekend. Have to suspect as they have the playoff cards for the PFL season and all, they're gonna run that ad like crazy.
Oh, for sure. And
They're
especially as the fight gets closer, that's going to be all over everyone's TV screens and social medias. It's going to be everywhere.
Yeah, and the PFL, and that's why I say they have to be in the middle. Although at some point I would lean them a little more to a win, only because one, you talk about those ads, and Zan, I think the PFL social media game is pretty, it's better than Bellator's. I would say it's
I would it's better. I would say it's number two to the UFC because the UFC is still the gold standard in MMA social media
fair,
content.
but I think PFL is definitely at least a number two. And honestly, Zan, for the PFL, the other reason I lean this more to win, even though I'll put them in the middle right now for what reasons that you said, is that they needed something like this. You know, after the Montiel Schultz controversy, after the judging controversy this past weekend, after the drug test suspensions, and now bringing in USADA for the drug testing, they needed some positive news, and this is that.
Yeah, 100%. And this is a fight that, whether you're a hardcore combat sports fan or even a casual, you'll tune in and see it because you're interested in the spectacle aspect of the fight. You're really curious, can two guys that are going to be a combined 400 pounds plus, can they go in there and test their wills? It's going to be very interesting.
Uh, ob- uh, so it's a win for Francis Ngannou. Slight win. I say slight win, but not all the way win for PFL. What is this for Tyson Fury?
Tyson Fury, it's a lose lose situation because if you win and you don't look impressive, that doesn't make the WBC look good. And if you lose, what was the point of keeping your WBC title when you're not going to even defend it?
Which is why some people are saying, should the WBC heavyweight championship be on the line? But again, it goes to the point of, if this is a professional boxing match, are you really going to have a one and out? Now, granted, Francis Ngannou has proven himself in the MMA world. He is the former UFC heavyweight champion, but it is a boxing commission, like, and let me word it better, is a boxing sanctioning body like the WBC just going to allow somebody to waltz in mixed martial arts and wear their championship? I don't know. At the same time, can you, especially if Tyson Fury loses, and especially if he gets knocked out, can you allow Tyson Fury to carry on with the heavyweight championship?
I mean, given what boxing has done over the years and what they've gotten away with, nothing surprises me anymore.
Or would, in the aftermath, they just name Tyson Fury a franchise champion? Because that we've seen WBC do that too.
They could, but then it also brings back to the question of what was the point? You had the Francis Ngannou fight just to name Tyson Fury a franchise champion and waste everyone's time. That
Which
that could be the other narrative thrown around if that ends up being the case.
which this is why, Zan, how you feel about PFL, I would also put boxing in the middle here, and I would actually lean them more towards a slight loss, is because, number one, I mean, say what you will about this fight, and there were people who are very anti Floyd and Connor. I don't know, Zan. I know Kevin Iole right now in the Twitter spheres, right now in a lot of hot water, considering what he said about Fury and Ngannou, and basically all his Connor Floyd articles resurfacing. But it's not so much, again, about this fight. Why I put boxing as a slight loser in this is not because of this fight itself. Because again, Francis, you can't fault Francis. He's getting a bag. Tyson Fury's going to get a bag. This pay-per-view is going to get a lot of buys. It's not a matter of that. It's a matter of this. That we try to make all these fights, and again, hold on, come on. There you go. And once again, got an opportunity, and that's the thing. Because why I say you also just can't blame these guys themselves, because look at these things. You still could have booked Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder for this region in December, but no. Now you're going to have Anthony Joshua versus Dylan White next month, when it doesn't even be necessary. You got Alexander Usyk fighting Dubois, and I like Daniel as a prospect. I think he's a guy on the rise. I don't think he's
As
beating Usyk.
as do I.
Like,
Yeah,
this sport has done so much damage to itself.
one
Like
hundred
that,
percent.
it's sad that a fight like this, and it's sad that that somebody like a Jake Paul has to revive this sport because of what you're doing to it.
Yeah, and it's also sad that quite frankly, a fight like Devin Haney and Lomachenko didn't get the coverage it deserved, but
That too, yeah.
Garcia and Tank Davis did, and they were both high level fights.
It's amazing. It's
It's
honor.
absolutely amazing.
So, all right, let's talk about with winners and losers. Let's talk about Dana White and the UFC.
All right, let's do it. What do you
Winner,
what do you have?
winner or loser? Simple question.
Um, the UFC won because they got the fight they wanted anyway in Jones Miocic, and now they can sit in the background and watch this happen because this is what they feared would happen. But now they don't even have to worry about it because they got the heavyweight title fight it won it anyway. So I would actually say it's a win for the UFC because it's clear and obvious that they didn't want to do business with Francis Ngannou and they were going to go the Stipe direction anyway. That's exactly what they did, and now the fight's done. So I would argue that
Okay, here's what I'm
it's a
gonna say.
win.
Here's what I'm gonna say. I understand that take, but I'm gonna put him more in the middle. Only because it's hypocritical for Dana to do this when you allowed this to happen with Conor and Floyd. You could have been in on this. You could have the UFC could have raked in a lot of money for this, and they're not going to. But which again, I think extends to Dana White, and Dana White can deny this all he wants. And we've said it weekly at this point. Conor McGregor has proven that he is bigger in this sport. He's bigger than the sport of mixed martial arts. He allowed Conor to get that way, and now Dana White is never going to allow anybody to get there. But I think here's what I think. I understand your take and I understand the direction they're going, and yeah, to win in that department. But if Francis Ngannou somehow pulls it off against Tyson and goes on to the more Francis succeeds, the more of a loss it is for the UFC.
For sure. But to counter you, I will say you're saying hypotheticals that haven't happened yet. So
That's why I said I place them in the middle at this point. I
that's
I,
all.
I will place them in the same point of PFL of in the middle but slight win.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll say this. Um, I mean, I think it's obvious to me at least that, as I kind of alluded to, if the UFC didn't want to do business with Francis
They
Ngannou,
weren't
and
going
they
to.
what did you say?
I said they weren't going to. Like I said, you're right in that regard only because of Dana being I don't know what the word is, but after watching Conor rise
Stubborn.
yeah, it's Dana White being stubborn. After watching Conor rise up to the level that he did, he's completely stubborn. He's already a stubborn individual, but he was really stubborn in
I
trying to do business.
I can say with a lot of confidence that had Floyd Mayweather lost to Conor McGregor in August of 2017, his tune on this whole boxing crossover thing would be totally different.
I agree, 1,000%.
Would be totally different. This fight, I I I I am of the one to believe that had Conor McGregor defeated Floyd Mayweather, and I will say this on record on July 12, 2023 at 12:49 Eastern, that had Conor McGregor defeated Floyd Mayweather in August of 2017, that Dana White would be the sole promoter of this very fight that we're talking about right now.
Ooh. Oh, that's an interest. It's not so much what you're talking about, like he'd be invested, that he'd be the sole promoter. Oh man.
He would promote it because when Dana sees money in something that he really likes, a la Power Slap, which honestly I have no idea how much money is in it. We'll never know. But what I'm saying is when he's all in and invested in something from a monetary perspective, he's all in. And when he's not all in on something, he clearly doesn't want it. I can guarantee you, if he wanted this fight, which is something that he was kind of teasing at, being a promoter for Tyson Fury a couple years ago, had things gone a little differently, you could easily see him promoting this fight in October.
And the other thing, Sam, that came to my mind
And
just when we
and
talked about
he's
promoting.
also he's also probably bitter that this fight didn't happen under the Super Boxing banner, which he had hinted at for over 3 years and never happened. Now you can buy Zuffa boxing shirts on Postmark for $20.
Well, Sam, it also and the also reason I only put it as a slight win is because Dana also looks like a hypocrite because think about it. He wouldn't do this for Francis Ngannou. But remember, he tried to do this for John Jones, or at least he hinted. He said, I would love to see if we could have John Jones versus Tyson Fury.
I wonder what his response to this is going to be now.
I'm telling you, give it by next week, by 1 week from today, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler is going to be official.
Wait, 1 week from today, at this very hour, or in a couple hours from now.
In a couple of hours from now. Give it a week. Give it a week. Connor Chandler's coming. Connor Chandler's coming. That big announcement is gonna come.
So Connor Chandler is coming, which means which means the world might explode.
Connor Chandler, December 16th, Las Vegas, Nevada. It's gonna be official this week after this news. Just because Dana's so bitter.
December 16th for a random title or no title on the line?
The Conor McGregor Championship.
Well, nonetheless, before we get out of here, Tom, do you have an early prediction on what we're calling the spectacle of all spectacles?
I think. Here's what I think.
And tell me your prediction based on whether you think it's going to be a 10-round fight or a 12-round fight. I'm curious.
Okay. If the longer the fight is, if it's a 12-round fight, it favors Tyson Fury more. Because I want to I want to also make mention of something, Zain, when we're talking about analyzing this fight.
Okay.
Preparing for an MMA fight and preparing for a boxing fight are two different things. And I think Conor showcased some of that struggle as he was kind of tiring out against Floyd in the second half of their fight before he stopped in the 10th round. I think Conor showcased some of those difficulties. And, it's pretty hard, Zain, to be able to transition back and forth between MMA and boxing. One person, Zain, one person who I think has really done it well, coming from the PFL, funny enough, Clay Collard.
Clay Collard 100%. He's probably the best example.
He is probably the best example. Jose Aldo's killing it right now in boxing, but granted, it's Shuto boxing, and he's already retired from the mixed martial arts scene. But basically, my point is, it's not everybody position back and forth between a boxing and MMA. So I could see Francis having some struggle with the transition into, because we're going from less rounds but more time in the round to more rounds but less time in the rounds. You get what I mean?
1000%, which I think is going to
Yeah.
make the fight that much more interesting. What do you think?
I think so too. That less rounds, I mean, having less rounds but more time, and having more rounds but less time, two completely different things. And I don't know if Francis is going to be able to keep the pace. Now, granted, again, here's what I think. I think the first couple of rounds are going to be very slow. Both of them are going to be very calculated at that point, trying to feel each other out. Round 3, I think Francis will pick it up a bit. If he can't, let me put it to you this way. If he can't, in either case, knock out Fury by round 6, I think Fury starts to take over. So, in the case of a 10-round fight, I am going to go Tyson Fury by unanimous decision. In the case of a 12-round fight, I want to lean the same, but at the same time, I could see 11th, 12th round Tyson getting the stoppage win.
Fury by TKO in the 8th. Either which way.
Ooh, okay. I like
it's gonna be a longer fight. Francis is gonna win one of the first 3 rounds, and then by round 4 he's gonna start to gas, and it's gonna look really bad. His arms are gonna flail, and he's gonna eventually get finished up against the ropes. And hopefully Kenny Bayless is the referee, and hopefully he officiates the fight well enough, because I'm a little biased. He's my favorite boxing referee, but
he's one of the smarter referees. He's one of the experienced referees, and he displays some of the best emotion in a fight for a referee.
Yeah, I think he needs to be the referee. But by the way, I'm also going to make a prediction on where I think the media tours are going to be. So I think there's going to be 4 of them. That's my prediction. They're going to do Las Vegas, Saudi Arabia, New York City, and London, England. There's going to be the 4.
Perfect 4. I think that's perfect 4. I think that's what they're going to do.
And I think they're going to start in New York, Vegas, and then the 2 international destinations.
I would have said Vegas first. At the same time, the PFL's headquarters are here in New York, so I definitely do think that New York could play host to the first one.
But yeah, I could see them doing a full-on media tour similar to Conor Floyd. I don't know if it would be a 4-day extravaganza where they go from city to city, but if they do it the right way and it's as big as we both think it's going to be, they have to do a media tour.
Well, actually, the PFL has a couple of different headquarters, one in Virginia, one in New York, one in LA, I think. But My point is, I thought maybe East Coast would have, but either way, one of the US is going to do the first two. The US is going to do the first two,
for sure.
and they're going to London. Then they go to Saudi Arabia. Because let's face it, Saudi Arabia, they're going to get the fight week stuff.
Right.
So, so that's probably how it's going to play out. The dates, I think, are going to be a little. I'm a little curious how they're going to do the dates for these pressers because they're probably going to have to do one a month.
It'll either be one a month or one every 2 weeks. Is what I think.
Yeah,
Because they want to build every single press stop up as much as they can. But if they are smart, which I hope they are, they have to do a media tour. I think this is one of
yeah,
those fights where it makes all the sense in the world to do a full on scrum and the whole thing. Do all the bells and whistles. Make the weigh-ins the biggest weigh-ins in years. It's gonna be big, and and then make it so there's a mini Radio Rose. Oh, that way the media can come in and treat it like it's boxing Super Bowl. They could do the whole thing.
I love it.
Yeah,
All right. I think we've talked enough about this fight. So we're
it's
going.
obvious. It's obvious that Tom and I are both very excited to see it. That's for
Yeah.
that's for sure.
So point being that you can say all you want to say about Francis Ngannou leaving the UFC, passing on the opportunity to be the UFC heavyweight champion, but this is a huge accomplishment for him. And this is the first step. For all that we started to doubt him and everybody started to get impatient, he has now taken the first step in trying to paint a basically a pathway, a possibility for fighters outside of the UFC that you can accomplish stuff without needing the UFC. Obviously, Zan, we've seen some fighters take that route, like Fedor Emelianenko, but Francis has the opportunity to do it for two sports.
Yeah, which is very unique. Before we get out of here, we just want to say thank you very much for tuning in to this morning slash afternoon live stream slash evening live stream, wherever you are in the world. Nonetheless, be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to share the show across all social media. Be sure to comment and share the show across all platforms. We want to thank the ETV network, of course, and ETV Sports. And then, of course, we would also like to say be sure to follow us at MMA Outsiders ETB. My name is Zain Bando. I'm a staff writer for BJPen.com. You can also find my work over with the Bellator rankings panel. There's about 24 of us on the panel. So if you guys want to yell at any of us about the rankings, we are here and open to ideas and suggestions on how to make it better. And then, of course, to my left is Tom Albano, the workhorse that he is, contributor over at Fansided MMA, cranking out UFC recaps almost every single weekend. I seriously do not know how he's able to do it as consistently as he does. So kudos to him. And then, of course, you can also catch his work over on the PFL website, where he will be bringing you everything PFL playoffs, PFL Europe, if they have any more of those shows, and all that good stuff and more. So thank you again for tuning in. And our schedule is being shuffled just a little bit. So thank you guys for bearing with us, and thank you again for tuning into this live stream. Fury versus Ngannou is official. It's done. Signed, sealed, delivered October, Saudi Arabia. Don't miss it.
Yeah, October 28th, Saudi Arabia. Time, pay-per-view platform, pay-per-view price, all to be determined, but it is on. It is on. It is official.
Yep.
All right, time to get out of here. For Zan, I'm Tom. See you next time, everybody. Take care.
Take care.